next lessons, we'll be discussing Excel functions. Excel has many inbuilt formulas called functions. Functions are typed by equal to and function name. For example, equal to sum. There are different functions in Excel. Sum, we have SUMIF, we have the SUMIFS, we also have average, we have count, we have COUNTIF, and many other functions. In this lesson, we'll be looking at various functions and how you can apply them to solve problems. We have this data. It consists of employee ID, the employee name, their age, and gender. Also, the job title and the salary. It also has the start date and the end date. Now we are going to be performing SUM, SUMIF, and SUMIFS, so you can understand the difference. The SUM function is a built-in function in Excel. It adds numbers in a range. It is typed as equal to sum. Take note of this. The SUM function adds cells in a range. It adds both negative and positive numbers. Just as explained, we're starting with the sum. Recall the lesson we did arithmetic operation where you familiarize yourself with how to use the sum function. We're going to repeat the same thing here. In this example, we'll be adding all the salary. We'll try to get the sum of the salary. Now we have equal to sum. Remember the summation sign, which is the colon. Super simple. Sum is one of the most basic and easy to use function in Excel. In case you're wondering, you can start with sum. This little description gives what it means. It simply adds all the numbers in the range of cells. If you want to add just the first three range, you can just have it here. And there you go. Let's look at SUMIF. SUMIF function is a built-in function which calculates the sum of values in a range that meets a single condition. The syntax of SUMIF is equal to SUMIF, in brackets, the range, then the criteria, then the sum range. The condition is referred to as criteria, which can be things like if a number is less than another number, if a number is greater than another number, or a number or text is equal to something. The sum range is where the function calculates the sum. Take a look at the syntax. We have the range, the criteria, and the sum range. Now, the criteria could be what you're trying to get. Are you trying to sum if the number is less than 5, if the number is greater than 10, or if the number is equal to 20, or if the salary is equal to this? Those are just the criteria. But the sum range is where the function calculates the sum. That's the column you're trying to calculate the values if it meets the criteria. Note something, the sum range is optional. If not specified, the function calculates the sum of the range as the condition. However, this only works in columns that are numbers. It doesn't work for text. Note something else. The different parts of the function are separated by a symbol like comma or semicolon. However, the symbol depends on your language settings. Let's take a look at the SUMIF function practically. Equal to SUMIF. Just like I explained, it has the range, the criteria, and the sum range. Now we have to start with the range. Now what is the range we want to calculate? Now we are dealing with the salary. Now you highlight the salary cell. Remember your drag and drop. Comma. What is the criteria? We want to calculate the salaries that are greater than 40,000. Or let's say the salary that are greater than 50,000. Greater equal to, or let's just use greater 50,000. Close it. Let's not forget the sum range. The sum range is the salary. What we're doing is we want to sum the salary that are greater than 50,000. Now, in this salary range, in the G column, we want to sum the salaries that are greater than 50,000. So you close the bracket and you hit your enter key, and now you have it. If you're to do this manually, these are only the values that are greater than 50,000, which is the 63,000 and the 65,000. So if you calculate this manually with your calculator, you would have the same answer we got in our output, 128,000. Let's try this again so you can understand it. Let's try to sum the salaries that are less than 40,000. Now, sum if the range, this is the range. Now choose the criteria. Less than 40,000. Remember to put the criteria in a quotation. Now we have our range. Now we'll close the bracket. Now we have 36,000. Now the only column that is less than 40,000 is 36,000, which is why we have 36,000 here. Now let's try to get the salaries of only salesmen. So let's say we want to sum the salaries of salesmen. Now you have it equal to sum if. What is the range? This is the range. Now we are summing if this range. Now what is the criteria of the range? Salesman. Now sum if F2 to F10 is salesman. Now what are we summing? We are summing the salary. Now you highlight the salary and you close and you have it. Now if you want to manually look at it, what is the sales of the sales? We have just two salesmen here. We have 45,000 and we have three salesmen. We have 45,000, we have 63,000, and we have 48,000. So if you sum this up with your calculator, you see that the total answer is 156,000. Try this yourself. Try to get the salary of the male. All right, let's try that one out. Equal to, we're trying to sum only the salaries of the male. Now, what are we doing? We're summing if. What is the range? The gender. Sum if. What is the criteria? We're summing for the male. Now, remember to always put your criteria in quotation. Sum if E2 to E10 is male. Now, what are we summing? We're summing their salaries. That's it. We have our answer. So try this out. Try to sum different values. Try to sum for female. Try to sum those who their age are above 30. Try to sum those who their salary are above 65,000 and see if you will get your answers. Let's take a look at SUMIFS function. The SUMIFS function is a built-in function that allows you to add up values based on multiple criteria. The syntax of the SUMIFS is equal to SUMIFS, open bracket, the sum range, the criteria range, then the criteria 1, the criteria range 2, and the criteria 2, and so on. Now, the SUMIFS is a function that allows you to add values based on multiple criteria. Remember, the SUMIF is based on just one condition, but for the SUMIFS, you can have multiple conditions. The conditions are referred to as the criteria 1, 2, and so on. And just like the SUMIF, it can be things like if a number is less than another number, if a number is greater than another number, or a number is equal to something, or a text is equal to something. The criteria range are the ranges where the function checks for the condition. The sum range is where the function calculates its sum. Just like the SUMIF, the sum range is where the function will calculate its sum. After all the if statements, this is where it's going to get its calculation from. Let's take a look at this. We have the same data, and with this, we're going to be trying out the SUMIFS. SUMIFS. Now you have the syntax, the sum range. Now, what is the sum range? Let's try to calculate, okay? The sum range. The sum range can be a little bit different from the SUMIF. Now, this is the sum range. This is the area that is going to be added after all the if statement. Now, we have to set it. Okay. Now, let's try to calculate using SUMIFS. So you have the equal to SUMIFS. Remember the syntax. You start by selecting the sum range. Now, the sum range is what is going to be summed after all the if statements. After we've added all the criteria and the criteria range, what is going to be summed is the sum range. So for the SUMIFS, you first select the sum range. Now, what we're trying to sum is the salary of salesmen that are female. That's what we want to do. We want to sum the salaries of salesmen, the male salesmen. Now you first select the range, comma. What is the criteria range? The first criteria is the job title, which is we're trying to sum the salary of only the salesmen. That is those who their job title are salesman. Now you select the criteria range 1, comma. Now what is the criteria? Salesman. So just click. Now what is the criteria? Salesman. Remember to put the criteria in a quotation. So you have it, salesman. Comma. Now we are in the criteria range 2. The second criteria is the gender. We want to get only the male salesman. Now, you highlight. Comma. And you put the criteria male. If we had more criteria, you can still add them. But in this case, we're using just 2. Remember, for the SUMIFs, you can have multiple criteria. But in this case, we have just 2 criteria. If you have more criteria, just follow the syntax, comma, select the third range and the third criteria, and you keep going on. So let's end our statement here. There we have it. So what this statement did is, it went to the job title, which is our first criteria, and got the salesman, which is 1, 2, and 3. Aside that, there could be other people who are salesmen. There could be female. But right here, the if statement is we want to calculate only the male salesman. So the second criteria leads us to the gender, where we select the male as our second criteria and sum. Let's try this example again. Let's try to sum the salary of females that are above 45,000. And let's see if we get anything. Remember, we're summing the salary of females that are above 45,000. So what is the sum range? The salary. That's what we're trying to sum after the whole if statement. Now you select the range. Now what's our first criteria? The gender. We want to get the females. What's the second criteria? The same salary. We're trying to get the female who their salary is above 45,000. Select the range. Greater than 45,000. And here we go. So it looks like it's only one female whose salary is 45,000, which is why we have 47,000 here. Let's another look at it. We have this female here, 36,000, which is not up to the criteria. And we have only just one female here. That is why it has just 47,000. So assuming we have more than that, you'll have summed it up and give us more than this. Now I hope with this example, you're able to understand the difference between the sum, the SUMIF, and the SUMIFs.